Good morning. Welcome to this week's edition of Delta Media Group's Tech Tuesday. Today, we've got kind of an interesting one for you. We're going to go over how you can sync your DeltaNet calendar with your Apple calendar or your Android calendar so that it'll be synced across all of your different devices, depending on how your devices are set up, and you'll be able to get notifications for all the to-dos that you set up in the DeltaNet or any events that you set up in the DeltaNet calendar through whatever calendar service you use. So I'm going to go through a few different ways to do it. This one's going to be kind of interesting in that a lot of this is not done through the DeltaNet exactly. So, but without further ado, let's go in and see how it's done. So I am logged into the DeltaNet, and I'm right here on the welcome page, just the first page you run into when you log in. And if we scroll down, and actually if you weren't on this page, if you go up to Home and down to Welcome, that'll put you there. And we'll just scroll down to the section that says Calendar. Now from here, I have a very important date set up, so I would like this very important date to show up on all of my devices. So I'm going to click View Full Calendar, and there's my event down there. And what we'll do to share this with other devices is we'll click on Share Calendar. That opens up a new window, and we choose how we want to share it. Now keep in mind, if you have all of your Apple devices synced together through an iCloud account, so normally when you first set it up, you'll sign into your Apple account or your iCloud account. Syncing it with one of these, or syncing it just with your Apple calendar, will automatically sync it with the other devices. But you can individually subscribe to this calendar on those individual devices as well. If, for example, you have an iPhone but you don't use a Mac laptop or PC, or if you have an iPad but you don't have an iPhone and you don't have an Apple PC. And that sounds strange, Apple PC. Technically it's correct though. And then Android will actually sync it with your Google Calendar also. So you sync it with your Google Calendar, and that will sync it with all of your Android devices on which you are signed into the same Google account. So I will just run through these in line, and what we'll do is go through these main ones, and then I don't have an easy way to show you what it looks like on an iPhone or an iPad, but basically whenever you click on one of these, the instructions will be emailed to you. So from there, you really just need to follow through on them. So first off, if we click on the Android button, we'll get an email, and that email will look like this. Let's see if I can full screen. Well, I guess I don't really have to full screen it. So we take a look here. We have a set of instructions that tells us exactly how we can sync it to our Google Calendar. So to see what that looks like, first thing we'll do is in step one, we'll click on our Google Calendar. It'll automatically open a browser window and redirect us to your calendar page in Google. And we can go down to Other Calendars. We'll click on Add by URL. So Other Calendars, we click the arrow, click Add by URL. That brings up our URL field, and the URL is in that email. So it gives you the instructions to do this, but down here in step 4, here is the URL we need. So I will grab that, copy, and we'll paste it here, and add calendar. Now you could choose to make it publicly accessible if you want, but it generally doesn't make sense to do so. I mean, this is just your calendar. But you can go in here and you can modify the settings for notifications on these calendars, all through Google's own settings too. And there we are, and there's our event. Now sometimes it can take a little time for the event to sync up, but usually within the hour, all of your events will pop up. And you'll see later on other calendars you can set how often it checks also. So now that this is synced with our Google Calendar, and I cycle through a few months and get us nice and confused. There we are, it's October. So here we are. What this will also do is any Android device that you're signed into this Google account on, whatever Google account, the calendar you attached it to. So for mine, when I clicked on that calendar link, it opened directly to the calendar because I'm already logged into my Google account. If you're not logged into a Google account on that computer, it'll take you to a login screen, and then you'll just enter your login credentials for whatever Google account you want to attach this calendar to, and you'll set it up there, and then every other Android device that you are logged into that Google account on, it will add it to those calendars as well. So if you have all Android devices, say an Android tablet and an Android smartphone, it'll show up on the calendars on all those devices, and you'll get notifications based on whatever your settings are on those devices. And then from in here we can also look at, see, this is the calendar we just added. So we can click on this arrow and we can edit notifications, we can edit settings for this calendar. If we want the items from this calendar that show up on this to show up in a specific color, and we can change the color to blue. So there you go. That gets it all set up with your Android calendar. Now, we'll close out of that. Next one is Outlook. Outlook's actually simpler, but the instructions are a little dated. But if we look over at the at the Outlook email, so this is the Outlook email you'll get. And what this comes down to is the very first part of it is a link that has this webcal at the beginning of it. If you click on this on your computer and you have Outlook installed, it'll automatically open Outlook and go straight to where you need it to go. So all you'll have to do is click on this link. It'll generally prompt you, asking you if you want to add the calendar. And I can't show you on this computer because it's a Mac without Outlook on it. And it'll have you enter your login credentials. And then your login credentials are just your same login credentials to log into the DeltaNet. And then once you're all signed in, that calendar will be added to your Outlook calendar. So then you'll get all your notifications and everything for all of the events you set up in the DeltaNet through Outlook. All right, so we'll close that. Now the next one in line is iCal, or Apple Calendar, really is what it is now. So for Apple Calendar, it brings up these instructions. There have been newer versions of Mac OS X that have made these instructions not exactly dead on anymore, so we'll just go through what they look like now. So what you do is you'll look at your email here, and these instructions are all still basically correct, but this first menu is in a different spot. So if we go down here to the bottom and click on Calendar, that opens my calendar up with a ridiculous number of things on it. And we'll go up to File, down to New Calendar Subscription, and then it'll ask for the URL. If we look in our email here, as soon as I see which one it is, there we go. We're going to enter this URL here. So it'll give you your own URL. In this case, my account is set up to the demo site that we're doing this on. So that's why it's using this dmgdemo.com. It will probably be www. Whatever your company domain is, .com/cal. So we will grab that URL. And subscribe. Now in this case, it wouldn't surprise me if it told me I'm already subscribed to that calendar. Oh, guess not. So it brings it up here. Now, because I've signed into this calendar on this computer before, it already has my login credentials, but what it would do next is just bring up a screen that asks for your username and password, and that's just your DeltaNet username and password. You enter that in, it'll find the calendar here, and then you can use this to set the color of the events from that calendar. Your subscribe to URL is already set for you. You can set it up so that it either stores the events from this calendar on your Mac itself or on your iCloud. So if you store on your iCloud, then every device that you're signed into your iCloud account on will automatically have these calendar events in it. So if you have an iPad and an iPhone also, whenever you add an event to the calendar in the DeltaNet, it'll pick it up here, and because it stores it in the iCloud, it'll automatically show it on all of your iCloud attached devices. So it'll show up on everything. Right? You can decide whether you want alerts to come in, you can decide how often you want it to refresh. So by default it's set to every week, but you could knock this all the way down to every 5 minutes if you want. Every hour generally is probably good enough for something like this, depending on how often you're adding events into the DeltaNet. And there you go. Once you have these settings the way you want them, you just click OK. It adds your calendar in, and then there's our event. And then if you wanted to remove the calendar here, you just right-click, unsubscribe. It deletes all the events and everything associated with that calendar, and it's all gone. So that is all there is to it. To add it to your Mac, which will add it to your iCloud, which adds it to everything. So let me close out of that. Now, the last two show how to add it on your iPhone or how to add it on an iPad. In these cases, you can do the same thing. You can sync it to your iCloud account so that all of your other devices will pick it up, or you can sync it just to that device so that, say, you only wanted the events from your DeltaNet calendar to show up on your iPad but not your iPhone. You could set it up on your iPad following the instructions here, and then once it's set up, those events will only show up on this iPad. We can see through here, I actually ran through the steps on a newer iPad yesterday, and everything lines up pretty well with how it's set up here. So as you can see from the instructions, you just go into your iPad settings, you go down to Mail, Contacts, and Calendars. You'll select Other when you set up a calendar. You'll want to add a subscribed calendar, so you'll tap there. It'll ask for that URL, in which case there's your server URL to enter. It'll pop up and ask for your username and password again, in which case you will enter your DeltaNet username and password. And then once you have that all set up, click on Next and you'll save it, and then all those events will start showing up on this calendar. And then there are other iPad settings that allow you to select whether or not you want to sync the iPad calendar with your iCloud calendar. So if you're doing that, it'll share on all your devices. If you're not doing that, it'll only show up on the iPad. And then the iPhone settings are roughly the same. So you would go into your iPhone settings, Mail, Contact, and Calendars. You'll add account. You'll scroll down to Other the same way you did on the iPad. Subscribed calendar will be the account. It's the same server URL and the same login credentials. Then once you're signed in, all those events will show up on your iPhone. So there you are. That's all there is to it. Now, the last thing I will add in here is we'll go back into the DeltaNet. Now, in addition to automatically adding to-dos whenever you set one up for a customer, so if we go into Customers and we select a customer as soon as we find one, well, that customer has a pending lead. We can't have that. There we are. So if we go down here and add a to-do, that'll automatically add this event to your calendar, in which case, if your calendar is synced, then it'll show up on all your calendars. Or, get out of here. If we go to the home page in the DeltaNet itself, so back to that welcome page, and go down to our calendar, we can add events just by clicking this plus sign and entering the information for the event. Or we can view full calendar, and we can click on a day and add an event to that specific day. And it automatically updates as we move around. So there you are. And then any event you add to this calendar will show up everywhere, or everywhere that you have it synced with. So that just about covers it for this week. Shows you how your calendar functions, how you can sync it with other devices. So let me back out of here. All right, and there we go. So, as always, if you have any questions on this or anything else, feel free to contact us at support@deltagroup.com, or you can send us an email there, or you can give us a call at 866-233-9833, and we can walk you over anything you need over the phone. Also, if you have any suggestions for video topics for the future, anything that doesn't make sense to you that you want us to go over, you can comment on this video or go ahead and send an email to that support address, and we'll try and get them on our video schedule. So thanks a lot for joining me this week, and I will talk to you again next week.